And I was putting cream on my hands. Perfect timing. Okay.
And a request to please speak, if you all can pull your microphones in close and speak directly into the microphones when we get started, that'd be great. Thank you.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
So good afternoon, everyone. So today is March 27, 23. I'm just stating it for the record. This is our first in-person meeting, Yolo County Climate Action Commission. So I'm thanking my fellow commissioners for being here in person, members of the public, thank you much. And I'm also greeting Supervisor Provenza, who is joining us remotely, and as well as staff and consultant. So I am calling this meeting to order. And also just for the record, people are able to join as the meeting is happening. They're able to join us remotely. And Kristen, I think we're ready for the roll call.
Great.
Thank you.
Commissioner Reed?
Here.
Commissioner Daddle?
Here.
Allman?
Here.
Vice Chair Kim is not here today. Commissioner Serena?
Here.
Don't see Commissioner White this time. Chair Mbondo?
Here.
Austin?
Here.
Commissioner Alvarez?
Here.
Commissioner Bennett?
Here.
And Commissioner Britton is not yet here, or is not here today. And then ex officio members, Sarah Morgan is not here today, and Camille Kirk.
I am here. Thank you.
And do not see Supervisor Frericks, but Supervisor Provenza.
I'm here, yes.
Thank you all. So let's now move on to the first agenda item. We're going to listen to the land acknowledgement read by Commissioner Reed.
Thank you. We take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we are gathered. For thousands of years, the land has been the home of the Patwin people. Today, there are 3 federally recognized Patwin tribes. The Cachel Dehe Band of Winton Indians of the Calusa Indian community, the Quetzal Dehe Band of Winton Indians, and Yochidehe Winton Nation. The Patwin people have remained committed to the stewardship of this land over many centuries. It has been cherished and protected as elders have instructed the young through generations. We are honored and grateful to be here today on their traditional lands.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. We're now looking at agenda item number 2, approval of the agenda. So fellow commissioners, do you approve the agenda as you received it?
I move approval, Commissioner Reed.
Do we have a
Second.
second? Commissioner Serena, second. Thank you. Any questions, discussions on this before we put it to a vote? No. Okay, we're ready to vote on that.
Commissioner Reed? Commissioner Daddle?
Aye.
Commissioner Allman?
Aye.
Commissioner Serena?
Aye.
Chair Mbondo?
Aye.
Commissioner Austin? Commissioner Alvarez?
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett?
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. At this point of the meeting, so we're looking at agenda item number 3. So this is public comments. As a reminder, we're going to hear public comments on items that are not already on the agenda. Welcoming our first commentator. So Alan Hirsch, thank you. So Alan, I'll ask you please to, if you don't mind, state your name again. Let us know of any affiliation that you'd like us to be aware of. And from the moment you speak, you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Alan Hirsch. I'm with Yolo Mobility, a resident of Davis. I bicycled here because I care about the environment. I'm afraid, I'm really concerned. If you saw the latest issue of Harper's Magazine, the cover was "The Incredible Disappearing Doomsday." It's basically the urgency to address climate change has gone away. in a lot of the copies. There's a New York Times Magazine had a thing about raising the speed limits from 65 to 70 in New York City, which would basically increase greenhouse gases for driving by 9%. And we are doing the same thing, I think, in Yolo County. There is a project to widen I-80. I think I've handed out the slate. I asked that any member of the public be given this as right for Brown Act in following this meeting. Project, they're adding 33% more lanes on I-80 in Solano County. And they're going to restripe they're going to do that by restriping the causeway, taking away the shoulders and making that travel lanes. And they're going to make those toll lanes, supposedly they'll be more environmental, even the cars will drive on that. And they claim this will make this reduce congestion. This will be sustainable. That's Don Saylor's word, sustainable, a freeway widening, and also will be socially equitable, making this additional lane a toll lane. I don't think there's been enough discussion about this, and I hope you will take this up because this is pretty important. I mean, everyone wants to drive, everyone thinks driving is really important, but I think we need to address this because 38% of the state's greenhouse gases and 75% of Davis's greenhouse gases are from driving. So this is smack and center of your project. And I think you should address this thing. Caltrans does one thing, they build freeways. They're pretty good at it and they're very efficient. And I think they're very ethical in some levels into the way dealing with really, but they only do one thing. Man with the hammer, everything looks like a nail. Denial is refusing to change. And that's what's going on here. We know that when you build it, it comes. When you widen the freeway, we get more driving. And UC Davis says, study after study after study, you increase the freeway capacity 10%, you get 10% more cars. It's ironclad. It may take 3 years, it may take 10 years, but it will happen. You will not reduce congestion. In fact, Caltrans has a study that's been talked about, hasn't been released yet, that says basically we widen the freeway, it will be congested day one because the causeway is the bottleneck on I-80. And you see this map, the map there, that shows all the freeway widening that's happening upstream of us in Davis. In Solano County, and that's going to create more to fix all the bottlenecks there. So our place will always, even with 33% more lanes, we're still going to be the bottleneck. We're still going to get the customer traffic. We're still going to get congested. We're going to get 33% more traffic, 33% more greenhouse gases. This sets us all back. We need to confront what's going on here. They have not had we've not had candid discussions. We have not supported science. The science says it's not going to work. We have not supported science here. I urge you to put it on your next agenda. Have Autumn Bernstein come and talk to you about the project. She will tell you that the carpool lanes will be congested day one. It hasn't been discussed, but everyone says it's a fixed congestion. It's not going to fix congestion. This is really important. This is a $347 million project. It's the largest project in the county, and we haven't had a discussion about this thing. Why not? We're in denial of what's going on here. Thank you very much. We need to enter denial.
Thank you, Alan, for your comment. For my fellow commissioners, Alan did email a little presentation on what he just talked about. So Kristen has it. So if you like to look at it and look at the data, it's available. Thanks again. Our next public comment. Please state your name and your affiliation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. My name is Torin Denevant. I'm the new executive director of Tree Davis. I just wanted to take a brief moment to introduce myself. I've met a few of you from my work when I was at Sacramento Tree Foundation for the past 5 years. I'm very excited to be in Yolo County. Despite our name of Tree Davis, we are very committed to Davis, but also we're very interested in being supportive of the entire county. We have a small project in West Sacramento currently with schools. We're actually hoping to be able to secure a schoolyard greening grant that's funded by CAL FIRE in the next quarter or so that'll have us working much more deeply in that community, but we're also always happy to be a partner with Woodland Tree Foundation and interested in working with communities of Esparto, Dunnigan, and other places throughout the county. So I'm just excited to meet all of you and hope to partner with you in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Troy, for joining us today. And we look forward to hearing more from Tree Davis. Any additional public comments?
We have Christine Shoemaker joining online.
Christine, thanks for joining us remotely. You have 3 minutes. Be listening.
Yes, so my name is Christine Shoemaker, and I'm a longtime climate activist from Woodland, California, who's been listening in on the YCCAC Zoom meetings basically since they started. So I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the staff and the members of the Board of Supervisors for ensuring that those of us who, for whatever reason, can't be there in person can watch this. I think one of the strengths of the YCCAC has been the outside input. So once again, I'm just really thankful that you took the effort so that a number of us could participate from the outside. And I'm very much looking forward to the discussion on the ag retrofit tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Any additional public comment online?
I don't see any at this time.
Thank you all again. So this concludes our time on agenda item number 3. Let's look at item number 4, approval of the minutes of the February 27th meeting. So please refer to attachment B. Do we have any feedback, anything that needs to be changed on the minutes?
I have a comment that was received in the chat from Scott Stewart. For public record, I'll read it out loud.
Oh, yes, let's do it now.
So for item 10, discussion, receive update and provide input on consumption-based inventory. DUDEC staff provided an overview on the greenhouse gas GHG inventories included in the CAP. The clarification that was requested. So a comment was made that relying on the community to make lifestyle changes may inhibit the county's ability to meet decarbonization goals. The same comment included in the request to consider having DUDEC provide a preliminary estimate of the amount of CO2 offset would be expected to come from reduction in the consumption-based inventory, something for the community to work with while the more precise figures are being assembled.
Thank you. So regarding the minutes of last month, do we have a motion to approve, or is there any change that's needed at this time beside what we just heard?
I move approval. Commissioner Reed with the amendment as read.
Second, Almond.
Any question, discussion, feedback on this? Yes, Commissioner Bennett?
I don't remember this, and maybe
Oh,
it's
and
right,
my-
but-
Commissioner Bennett, could you please speak into the mic?
Yeah, okay. So item 3, approval of the agenda shows C. White and K. Britton absent, and item 5, approval of the minutes shows them both abstaining. Did they arrive late and then abstain?
They did arrive late.
Okay, I just wanted to check on that. It seemed odd that it was the same 2 people. Okay, thank you.
I wanted to add one item that I don't see. I did make a comment in the chat and I don't think it made it to the minutes. It was also on item 10.
We're listening. That's Commissioner Serena for those who are
Yes.
online.
I know that it did have to be read by Chair Mombondo, and so I don't know if I was having issues with my audio and I just typed my comment in the chat. I'm not sure if that was extracted from the chat then, but I don't see it. It made it to the minutes.
Is in item 10.
I believe it was item 10, yeah, regarding lifestyle change.
Do you want to, just for the record, give a brief summary if you remember what it was? I want to say when we record meetings on Zoom, the chat is also saved as far as I know, the text, right? So the record can be retrieved, right? Later on. Okay.
It was also regarding lifestyle change for communities. And I was basically saying not every community has the same resources to make certain lifestyle changes, especially when individuals in communities don't feel safe to, for instance, bike ride versus, for instance, from Woodland versus Davis, they don't have the same infrastructure to support a change of that sort. So that was my comment, and I still stand by it.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Serena. So I'm asking the staff, will it be possible to retrieve it later on and add it to the minutes?
Yeah, yes, we'll go back and look at the chat log, and thank you, Commissioner Serena, for the summary. That makes it easy to find it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So
And then accept the motion.
that's Commissioner Reed. Do we have a second?
Yes, I'll second that as well.
Commissioner Olmani, the second. So one last round. Any additional feedback before we vote on it? I don't see any. I think we're ready to vote.
Commissioner Reed,
Aye.
Commissioner Daddle,
Aye.
Commissioner Allman,
Aye.
Commissioner Serena,
Aye.
Commissioner White,
Aye.
And noting for the record that Commissioner White is here. Chair Mvondo,
Aye.
Commissioner Austin,
Aye.
Commissioner Alvarez,
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett.
Aye.
Thank you all. The motion to approve the minutes of last month passes unanimously. Let's move on to agenda item number 5. We're going to listen to staff announcements and reports. Kristen, you have the floor.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Feels very different sitting over here in person and not seeing all of your Zoom faces together. So just wanted to share 2 quick staff announcements. So the first, for those of you who've been attending Climate Compact meetings regularly for many years, just wanted to share that we're preparing as staff, I think at this point of transition in Climate Compact leadership. We're preparing a survey that we're planning to send out to the entire Climate Compact membership to try to get a sense of what folks want and need from the Compact network so that we can best chart a path forward for the Compact and all of the participants. And so just wanted to share that. I know the Compact has not been on schedule. We didn't meet in March. And so wanted to note that and share that we're really excited to get input from you all, from the public on where the Compact goes from here. So that's the first announcement. The second is a request as is listed in your agenda packet. We have a lot of public outreach events for the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan coming up in April, I believe 12th. And so commission members, if you are interested and able to attend any of those to help with the tabling, connect with your community, please be sure to sign up or let me know so that we can make sure that you're there. And that's it for staff announcements.
What's the process for signing up?
I sent out a sign-up sheet with the to everybody, so I'm happy to resend that out as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the staff reports. I will just add to it, if you receive the newsletter, so the sign-up link and sheet, I believe, is also on it in the newsletter.
No, it was sent directly to
commissioners?
commission members.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. So this concludes our time. Actually, before I close on that, commissioners, you have any questions on what you just heard or feedback on staff report? Not at this time. Members of the public, do you want to react to the staff report? Anything you would like to ask or tell us? Online?
No public comment online.
No public comments, so this concludes our time on agenda item number 5. We are looking at agenda item number 6. This is a discussion item, so we're going to receive, update, and approve an updated Yolo agricultural equipment retrofit early action project description, and that was a mouthful. Please refer to attachment C, D, and E. We're going to listen to Gretchen James, who is a Civic Sparks Fellow. Thank you, Gretchen, for joining us.
Hello, is this on? Hello, commission members. My name is Gretchen. If you're not familiar, I'm a Civic Spark Fellow serving with Yolo County, and I'm here to provide an update on the agricultural equipment retrofit project as part of the county's early action projects initiative. The project description is included in your commission packet as attachment D, and the project entails using American Rescue Plan funds to replace gas-powered utility terrain vehicles, or UTVs, with their electric equivalents, or EUTVs, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. There are many benefits that come with the electrification of UTVs, along with the greenhouse gas emission reductions, including lower maintenance requirements and therefore lower maintenance costs, longer vehicle lifespan, the economic benefits of charging your vehicle with electricity rather than fueling it with gas, reduce noise pollution, and higher energy efficiency. The AER program would expand on the farmer program, allowing for a dedicated stream of funding for EUTV retrofitting, in addition to the retrofits done by the farmer program. allowing for further electrification. The county has been in conversation with the Yolo Solano Air Quality Management District, and they've said that if the project receives approval in concept, the Air District would consider designating match funds for EUTV replacements, along with in-kind administrative support. They've also said that if the project is successful in its first year, the Air District may consider turning this into a recurring annual funding program, allowing for further emissions reductions in the ag sector in the years to come. To go over the cost considerations and funding structure of the program, county staff recommend dedicating $130,000 of ARP funds to the AER program. This would allow us to offer $10,000 in funding per retrofit project, with a sliding scale up to $15,000 per replacement for socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. We also recommend removing small farming operations and COVID hardship affidavit from the priority criteria due to a lack of clear definitions of need and to expand accessibility to the program. This would allow the program to fund 10 to 15 EUTV retrofit projects. And what that would mean for emissions reductions, we asked the Air District to provide us some emissions reductions data from UTV retrofits that they've funded with the farmer program. And they found that over the course of project life, emissions reductions for an EUTV retrofit reduces approximately 28.65 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. That's equal to the amount of emissions that would result from driving the average car around the Earth 3.8 times. The agricultural equipment retrofit program would allow these benefits to be multiplied by 10 to 15, in addition to the emissions reductions that would result from the farmer program. The project timeline thus far is that the project was approved in concept by the Commission in June of 2022, and now has been approved in concept by the Board of Supervisors Subcommittee on Climate earlier this month. Moving forward, we hope to present the project to the Board of Supervisors in May of 2023, and then work with the Air District to develop grant administration guidelines in the summer of 2023, and to release the funding opportunity in the fall of this year. I'd now like to open the floor for any questions or comments you may have. And if you feel like there are any questions that weren't sufficiently addressed at this meeting, feel free to reach out to sustainability@yolocounty.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner White?
Thanks so much for that. I have just one clarifying question. You used the word both replacement and retrofit. They're two different things. So are you asking people to buy a new EUTV, or are you asking them to retrofit the gas engine with the battery?
It would be a retrofit project.
I think it would be a replacement project.
Yeah, retrofits are really, really, really tricky to do. So if there is a choice, I would encourage you to have them buy new ones, because even with a retrofit, they end up with a lot of the fluids that are still, they don't replace everything. And so you still end up with a bunch of pollutants in there. Plus they're getting the advantage of buying something that's brand new and still under warranty for 5 or 6 years, rather than something that might invalidate a warranty.
And that's really helpful as well. I think when you originally approved this project description as a commission, retrofit was the title that we had used. This project has really evolved substantially since then. So it seems like agricultural equipment replacement project might be a more appropriate name for this project.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes. Commissioner Reed?
This is slightly off topic, but I still think it's something that we ought to be aware of as we work in this field. And that is the controversy that sort of it is brewing, unless it's been resolved, for repair with the tractors and other farm equipment, because the more sophisticated farm equipment has become, then the more likely it is that the farmer is no longer to do self-repair on site and having to arrange to transport, especially large equipment, to repair facilities. And so I know that the National Farm Organization has been negotiating with John Deere and trying to come up with an equitable repair policy that enables them to maintain their equipment at an affordable price. So it's just something to have in the back of our heads as we're talking about bringing new equipment onto farms, to make sure that they have access to the kind of support that they need for the equipment to be available to them during the seasons in which they need it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed, for that comment. And I want to add to what Suzanne said. And this comment for me is addressed to our DUDEC team. And so there will be a follow-up later, hopefully. I'm wondering if at some point in the process of writing the CAP, we will be able to have a conversation on what Suzanne just shared. But what I mean by that is how that ties into something that has been suggested by several community members, which is reaching out to schools, community colleges, vocational schools to see if they have started to think of integrating green jobs tracks in the training, including maintenance of, electric vehicles and so on. So again, this ties into how the CAP will elevate and, or help the local economy, creation of green jobs, new jobs, or further accessibility. And then also, again, thinking from the perspectives of the farmer, being able to have that help without having to go very far away and in a way that's affordable. So again, just food for thought, and I hope that we're able to revisit that.
Thank you.
Thanks. And then I have one question. Yeah, Kristen, did you want to say something? Oh, Mark. Okay, Mark, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple of detailed questions. The staff report makes reference to water pumping. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Are they used as a power takeoff type of application for these vehicles, or what's the link there?
I believe we were discussing the possibility of electrifying water pumps as a separate project.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and decided that the best use of the funds would be for the UTV.
Okay, duly noted
replacements.
there.
Yeah.
And about the charging facilities, there's a 240 volt. Would this be interchangeable with other vehicles perhaps, so that it might encourage the adoption of other vehicles beyond the UTVs?
I'm not sure if the EUTVs use the same type of power port as EVs, but I can check on that.
Okay. And what's the plan? If this is a pilot program, what's the plan for extending the outreach based on the results? Is it through the Farm Bureau, or what would be the vehicle for that?
Yeah, we had talked about partnering with the Farm Bureau in terms of outreach. Our plan was to have a conversation about this with our Natural and Working Lands Working Group as well, but we had a very full meeting and ran out of time, so we'll have a conversation in that venue as well. The other note on the charging infrastructure, it's not the same charger as an EV. And so that is one of the things that we noted in the staff report, is that if this is approved, we'd want to have conversations around also providing technical assistance to support the installation of charging infrastructure.
Sorry, me again. So this program's been done really successfully in the Salinas Valley, and very well indeed. And the firms that I'm working with down there are all just using wall chargers. They call them ATVs, not UTVs, but it's very rare that they're having to put in any type of new charging infrastructure. They have little batteries. They actually don't use a whole lot of power. So it's a really quick and simple fix for them. There's also been a bill introduced to Congress to put a $2,500 tax credit on top of this, and it should pass this session of Congress. So not only would it be the rebate, it would be the tax credit plus the fuel savings.
Thanks so much.
I love these. It's a great plan. It's a great plan. I love these.
That's Commissioner White. Thank you, Commissioner Datter.
Yeah, could you just tell us a little bit about, how specialized is this? Is this something that is unique to farmers, or are these widely used? Are they different from the recreational, version of these? So maybe they're not as specialized as some other farm equipment, meaning it'd be easier to get repairs. Just address some of that.
Yeah, they're not just farming equipment. They have recreational use as well. I'm familiar with them being used for hunting or for just any all-terrain vehicle needs. But I think the difference between ATVs and UTVs is UTVs are more used as farming equipment for farming operations.
And this is, we did hear a little bit from the Natural Working Lands Working Group. It varies a lot based on the size of the farming operation as well. You know, for some farms will have a whole bunch of these. You'll have 6. And then for some smaller farms, this might be the primary around farm vehicle because you've got a small operation. This can really do the trick. And so I think that a lot of what we were seeing is this might have the biggest, bang for our buck for different farming operations, depending on the type of operation that they have.
Thank you. Any additional question? Yes, Commissioner White?
So having stated, I already love these. The other thing is that with the gas powered ones and the farms that I've been out to, they leave them running. They don't turn them off. And so with these, leave it running, go for it. But it's really kind of crazy too. I've been to one now, a dairy farm where they're actually using them to herd cattle. So cowboys are over, y'all. It's these little battery powered tractors now.
Thank you for that comment, Commissioner Austin.
Can we hear a little bit? First of all, thank you so much for your presentation. Excellent to hear and that you're fielding these questions really well. My question is about how we're going to be doing the outreach to make sure that it's not just the folks in the know who are able to take advantage of this. So folks want to talk a little bit. This leads into some of the outreach engagement question.
Yeah, we're about to launch our outreach efforts as part of the CAP through the Natural and Working Lands and the Equity Engagement Working Groups. And I believe that will include outreach about the program. And once we speak with the Air District about how we would do the scoring and determine the priority criteria, then I think we'll be able to begin outreach for it as well.
I think we also, to add to that as well, I think that's excellent. We'll have a bit of a runway in getting this set up. And so that's an additional conversation that we can have with our working group to make sure that we're really targeting the communities that are intended to be receiving these and have a plan that we can provide updates on as we move forward.
Thank you. If I'm silent, it's because I'm taking notes, so it takes me a while to come back to you all. I do have a question. So at some point in your presentation, you mentioned that this project, as of now in the way it's written, is eligible only for a temporary funding, and then it might become more permanent depending on its success. So is there any projection regarding, elements or factors that will make the project successful? Because, so the question is addressing farmers' concerns, which were, number one, they're hoping that this funding will be supplemental and not take away from other needs that they have. And number two, obviously, if this was an ongoing support, not just after next year and so on, that will be most welcome. Do you have any idea or projections that you might be able to share?
Yeah, so the farmer program is usually used to supplement funding for heavier duty farming equipment. And so we put this project program design together so that there could be additional opportunities for that electrification. So this one is streamlined specifically for EUTVs, and then farmer program funds can be used for other heavier duty equipment on those farms. After conversations with the Air District, they said that if using the ARP funds for this kind of trial run is successful and we're able to see significant emissions reductions per project, that they would consider having designated funds annually to continue the program after the trial run.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Pelayo Alvarez,
Yes, thank you for the presentation. How would the success, the potential success of the program be evaluated? In other words, how are you going to make sure that there are emissions reductions from those, the replacement of the UTVs?
The farmer program has a calculator tool that allows you to assess what the emissions reductions per project have been. And they also have a tracking tool that you can see from project start date throughout project life, what emissions based off of the usage of the vehicle and based off of the charging and how often you would need to repair your parts or do an oil change or fuel. So they have calculator tools that are helpful in giving estimates of how many emissions have been reduced. And so far, I've been basing research off of that tool that they have. So that would be what I would say for now. Yeah.
So are the users of the program going to be surveyed on how they're using the new vehicles, or is just a calculator that anyone can enter, 10 UTVs, replace 10 gas-powered vehicles, therefore?
Yeah, it's pretty general. There are inputs that you can put in if you want those more specific numbers, but there are also just for like mileage that alone can give answers in terms of emissions. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Gretchen. Commissioner Bennett?
I think, yeah, it looks wonderful as far as the impact that you can make for one EATV.
Micah?
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, the 3 times around the world looks really good, but I'm just, in terms of evaluation, to really look at the impact the program has overall and how much reduction, what a dent we're making in emissions, because if I read this right, this is 13 ATVs, this 130,000, and hopefully it will be on, we'll get more funding. So I hope that's jumped on right away, because when we were meeting with the Natural and Working Lands Group, they were talking about farms having 4 to 8, just kind of standard. And this, so I doubt that all of them are going to go out and, or there's not going to be one farm that's going to try to get funding for 8, but it's just doesn't seem like it goes very far. And so I hope we come up with good ways to leverage it and really be able to look at like the overall dent in emissions that it's making for that kind of money.
Thank you, Micah, for that feedback. And Gretchen, as a follow-up to what we just heard, in some of my conversations with farmers, an idea that keeps coming up is that some of them, or several of them, would love the possibility of having tools cooperative or equipment cooperative. So I don't know if that ever came up in your research or conversation. And I know we're working with 10 to 15 vehicles. Do you think that some of them might also be available to farmers who might not be able to own the equipment entirely?
Are you referring to farmers receiving this equipment for the first time, not replacing an existing one?
Yes, for the first time.
I think that that would be eligible because as of now, we're planning on the criteria to be if there would be emissions reductions and with priority for socially disadvantaged farming. So if there's a way to prove that there would be emissions reductions by the use of this vehicle, I think it could still qualify.
Thank you. Additional feedback, questions? Okay.
Thank you for the presentation, and I learned a lot just hearing, all of the questions being answered. So really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm excited about it. I do think that having these vehicles for the farmers will help expose them to this technology and also excite farmers about having this as an option. So I know that we probably won't be able to give, X amount to each farm or, but I just think the exposure to it is going to help, just kind of get the momentum going. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And before you go away, so I want to ask if we have any public comments at this time on this topic. Yes, Kristen.
Public comment request from Alan Hirsch.
Yes, Alan Hirsch, you have the floor. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. This is an important project. We need to pilot projects to commercialize this technology. This is really important, but we need to realize this is a pilot project. So what's as important as the doing, but also telling farmers and publicizing and telling people that this can be done. This is really important. Because I saw that the slides were not presented. I saw that this is equivalent to 71,000 miles of cars removed. The freeway widening on I-80, to bring that up, is 271 million miles a year. a year, and this is the entire lifetime. So we're talking about a 300,000% higher increase. So this is a pilot project. Reality is the other bigger project. So we need to keep our eye on the ball, doing real projects that produce real things right now. Pilots are important, but the real stuff that's happening right now is important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hirsch. Any additional public comments?
We have public comment from Christine Shoemaker.
Kristen Shoemaker, you have the floor. You have 3 minutes.
So thank you, and thank you to the presenter. I found this very interesting. I have two sort of comments. The first is, or it's more as a question. Are all farmers out there using this in addition to their tractors? Or are there some smaller farmers that do some of what you can do on a UTV with their tractors? And is this kind of like an argument for perhaps giving these new to a variety of farmers, because they would be using something that uses a lot less emissions than if they were using a tractor for the same purpose? So I just kind of interested in whether everybody out there has a UTV. And to what Mr. Hirsch says, I mean, there's lots that needs to be done to reduce emissions from farms with full tractors, with water pumps. So I do hope this is just a very starting point for what Yolo County can do for farmers. Thank you. And an answer to the question about whether everybody has a UTV, that'd be interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, for your comment. And any additional public comments, Kristen?
None at this time.
So I believe Commissioner White will need to react. No? Yes?
So sorry, I'm going to belabor the point. Commissioner White here, you were talking about emissions reductions and could new purchases, somebody who's not buying one, be eligible? Well, I think that's awesome. UTVs, ATVs that are pre-2000 have pretty high exhaust. They don't have emission controls on them. And ARB has some rulings on the tiers of engines. And I would really consider rewarding or awarding the dirtiest engines first, rather than somebody who's not doing something at all. So, and there's guidance from the ARB.
Thank you, Chris, for that additional comment. So just for clarification, Gretchen, was this your first presentation to the board, to our commission? I want to congratulate you. Yes. So you have met public speaking skills. Thanks again for this and answering our questions. This concludes our time on this agenda item. We're now moving on to agenda item number 7. So let's discuss the approval of the dissolution of the Equity and Engagement Working Group and Natural and Working Lands Working Group. We'll provide input on the technical advisory committees. For those, please refer to attachment F. And Kristen, you have the floor. Thank you all again.
Thanks, everybody. So this is a bit of a sort of technical how we approach these bodies to make them most equitable and most open to public participation. There's a very long staff report that goes along with this that explains the, the structure of these two groups. But to sort of summarize and to take a step back, so we have been operating an equity and engagement and natural and working lands, 2 ad hoc working groups. As folks know, we are all here in person today. The move of the Brown Act to require in-person meetings would apply to these groups. And from the preliminary conversations that both our equity and engagement and natural and working lands working group have been having with the public, with potential partners, with the underserved communities that we're hoping to connect with and serve as a part of this process, requiring in-person meeting participation is incredibly prohibitive. And so we want to create a space that preserves the access that is really central to the Brown Act, while providing additional flexibility for these groups to work and function as intended. And so the proposal on the table is to dissolve these two working groups that have been operating as ad hoc, and then for the county to establish technical advisory committees. As you will see in the staff report, we plan to appoint the same commission members who have been serving on these working groups to the technical advisory committees. And then these technical advisory committees would advise staff and provide regular updates to the commission on the climate action and adaptation planning process through the lens of equity and engagement and natural and working lands. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have on these proposals. I think I will leave my update at that.
As a reminder, please state your name if you're making a comment or have a question. Any reactions? Clarifying questions?
Hi. So apologies, we're all sharing mics here as to the point about being able to host these in-person meetings. So I'll just say a couple of words, and this was sort of alluded to in our last meeting's presentation on the equity and engagement working group. So there is a pretty significant equity component to this. So certainly I think that people are pretty aware of sort of, as people are gathering in person, what that means from an emissions and other climate impact perspective. But from the equity perspective, we're a pretty geographically large county. And I think that it's important to think about how people in some of the furthest flung areas, which tend to be rural areas, which tend to be unincorporated areas, and have some of our most state-defined disadvantaged populations and vulnerable populations living there, we want to make sure that those people have an opportunity to weigh in. So in the Equity and Engagement Working Group, we're thinking long and hard about, we are being very deliberate and having a lot of discussion about how to open this up. And this is one key way for us to do that. So we'll be talking a little bit more this afternoon or later in this meeting, and then also at future meetings about what specifically we're trying to do to weave in the voices that we think are the most impacted by climate change and need to have their perspectives shared in these decision-making efforts around the CAP. But this is really important. It's very technical, but by making this shift that I wholeheartedly support, it's going to provide an opportunity for us to include and engage more voices in our working group as well as the other working groups. I just wanted to share that perspective.
Thank you, Bernadette. Any further reaction?
Could I just add another comment? Just two other important things. The working groups, and I think another key piece is we've been having an exceedingly difficult time finding spaces that can successfully host hybrid meetings. And so even creating this would open up an opportunity for Zoom meeting participation, our equity and engagement working group. And so we plan to have these meetings be open to the public. The agendas will be posted publicly. So really preserving those elements of the Brown Act that are really focused on transparency and access. And then as an additional layer, anybody who would like to directly receive the agenda or for these meetings, you can email sustainability@yolocounty.org and you can be put on a direct distribution list so that you do not need to go to the county's website to find those.
Thank you, Kristen. And if you don't mind repeating that again, will the meetings be only online, or is that, you mentioned hybrid version, so they will be like in person and people will be able to join remotely?
Yeah, so I think what this does, it doesn't lock us into any format on the natural and working land side of things. For example, there's a lot of benefit to having some of these meetings in the field, on farms and on ranches where we can see practices in place. Those happen to be locations that are very hard to have Zoom meetings. And so we're not taking away the opportunity to have those in person only. Those will be open to the public, but this does give us an opportunity to have Zoom only and hybrid meetings, which we would not have under our current structure.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, so I would like to thank the staff and especially Kristen for coming up with this solution, because I know personally I was panicking for a hot moment, wondering and worrying about, being as accessible as possible to our fellow residents. So again, thank you. So I think I'm going to ask for public comments on this at this time. Mr. Hirsch, I see that you're ready to address us.
Yes, thank you very much. Equity and access is really important. And I know you're working under the Brown Act, but the Brown Act is not an act of God, it's an act of the legislature. And there have been 2 modifications of the Brown Act with Zoom. And we have a state legislature who's very willing to carry legislation. So if there is a problem with the Brown Act that constrains you access, I would urge you to contact our legislature and ask her to carry some legislation to reform it. Because we can fix that. If it's not equitable, we should fix the state law. And Cecilia Aguilar will work with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hirsch. And on that note also, I want to let you know, I don't think that's a secret, but I believe there is efforts that's already happening to make amendments to the Brown Act. So let's all stay tuned, and thank you for the advice to reach out to our legislators. Any further public comments, maybe online?
I don't see any public comment online.
Okay, and I see that Supervisor Provenza has not asked to get the mic. No, okay.
I
So
can just update you briefly. We are meeting with Assemblywoman Aguilar Curry, I believe next week, to ask that she support some existing legislation that's out there that would allow remote attendance at volunteer commission meetings. We're not asking, say, for the Board of Supervisors for elected bodies to be remote, but that there be a Zoom or remote option for volunteer commissions like the Climate Commission. And Kristen and I and some others will be meeting with Assemblywoman Aguilar Curry, who chairs the local government committee, and that's the committee that this legislation will be going through. So we are very hopeful.
thank you, Supervisor Provenza. That's excellent news.
Welcome.
So before we close on this item, any last remarks? I don't see any. So this concludes our time on agenda item number 7. Let's move on. Yes, sorry. Thank you, Commissioner Reid, for keeping us on track. I was ready to move on with that, asking for a motion.
I move approval of the dissolution of the Equity and Engagement and the Natural and Working Lands Working Group.
Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Bennett, second.
Thank you. Feedback, questions, comments on that before we place it to a vote? None. And I did things out of order because at this point I'm supposed to ask for public comments, but we already heard them. So I think we're ready to vote.
You would think I would have the list memorized by now, and now you're actually in order, but here we go.
We'll quiz you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reid.
Aye.
Commissioner Daddle.
Aye.
Commissioner Allman.
Aye.
Commissioner Serena.
Aye.
Commissioner White.
Aye.
Chair Mbondo.
Aye.
Commissioner Austin.
Aye.
Commissioner Alvarez.
Aye.
And Commissioner Bennett.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. So the Equity and Engagement Working Group, Natural and Working Lands Working Groups are now dissolved. And technical advisory committees on those are formed. Thank you all again. So this concludes our time on agenda item number 7 for real now. Let's discuss agenda item number 8. We're going to receive and provide feedback on the climate action and adaptation plan, equity and engagement strategies. Please refer to attachments J and H. And we're going to listen to Julia.
It's actually going to be to Jane Gray from DUDEC
Oh,
to kick us off.
sorry.
Hi. We're just posting signs on the door to text me if you need to be let into the building after hours.
Okay, is Jane going to be here in person or remotely? I don't remember.
She's going to be here remotely.
Okay, and if I may ask, do we have additional members of the DUDEC team also with us?
We do. We have additional members. We have Mr. Mike Howard and, excuse me, Ms. Madeline Murray.
And sorry, a quick comment. I just received a comment in the chat asking if we have had actually voted to approve the ag equipment retrofit project description.
I would be happy to make a motion for approval of item 6. Is that what you need?
Yes.
Perfect. So Commissioner Austin made first motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Sin. Second.
I'll second. Commissioner Serena.
Okay, feedback, questions, discussions on that before we vote? No? Are we ready to vote? I don't know how we're gonna end this meeting. Thank you, Bernadette.
And thank you, Christine Shoemaker, for pointing out the submission. Appreciate it. And if I could, I request in addition to the motion to change the name to the Agricultural Equipment Replacement Program.
Yes, please.
Amend my motion if need to be named the Yolo Agricultural Equipment Replacement Early Action Project. Commissioner Serena, you want to?
I second. Commissioner Serena seconds.
Okay, so we're ready to vote on the motion with amendments.
Thank you. Commissioner Reed. Commissioner Daddle.
Aye.
Commissioner Allman.
Aye.
Commissioner Serena.
Aye.
Commissioner White.
Aye.
Commissioner Austin.
Aye.
Commissioner Alvarez.
Aye.
And Commissioner Bennett.
Aye.
Oh my gosh, sorry, I went in line and Chair Mbondo.
Aye.
Transition to in-person has been seamless.
Absolutely flawless.
To ask for the chair's vote last.
There you go.
So
It was
we're
intentional.
very much within protocol.
So at this point, at the end of this meeting, please ask me if I remember my name.
Can I have one question to
Of course.
ask about number 7? I might have not heard the motion completely, but I heard a motion to dissolve the existing groups, but not a motion to form the new technical committees.
That is correct. If
Oh.
you vote to form a new technical committee, you then fall into the same Brown Act structure,
Okay,
regardless of name. So it was intentionally worded to provide input on the new committees.
okay, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying, which is why I was trying to be subtle about welcoming the creation of the technical advisory. So before we resume our discussion or start our conversation on agenda item 8, is there any other past agenda items that we need to
Revisit.
Yeah, yes. No? Okay, are we all caught up? Looks like it. Okay, thank you all. So agenda item number 8, feedback on climate action on the CAP, basically EE strategies. And Jane, I have good news for you. You finally have the floor. Thanks
you.
for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Chair Mavongo, members of the commission, and everybody who's joining in the public. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully everyone can see the presentation that I have.
We can see it.
Wonderful, thank you. Thanks for taking time to chat with us today. And if you have questions or comments, please feel free to interrupt me during the presentation. So first, we'd like to start with the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan logo. We've been working really hard with staff and have a draft to share with you. This is the Climate Action Plan logo that we have come up with. It was derived really from ADA accessible colors, along with a number of colors that are currently reflected in the Yolo County logo. So we think it's lovely and we hope you agree. And this is part of your packet. So let us know if you do have any questions or comments on this at all. Moving on, wanted to update everybody on the communication and engagement plan, which is the overall way that we are going to be communicating with unincorporated Yolo County residents throughout the generation of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. So the communication and engagement plan overall outlines the entirety of the strategy for community engagement. It nests within it the specific equity strategies that we are working with your staff and the Equity and Engagement TAC. The document itself provides acronyms and definitions, provides a background of the project. It will include geography of the project, maps, and community descriptions. There will also be a section on purpose, goals, and outcomes of engagement and equity. And we will have an overall role of governance, TAC, collaborators, agencies, industries, the public, also outline sort of responsibilities, how entities engage. We will include a project timeline and an evaluation and assessment section. All of the materials and language that are in the community engagement plan will be in English and in Spanish at a minimum. And this will be a really visually rich document with a number of different graphics and opportunities to visually process information. So that's the overview of the CEP that we're producing. We'll move on next to the equity and engagement strategy, which is a subsection of that communication plan. Our work is grounded in the work of Trabian Shorters and the concept of asset framing. Asset framing is an understanding that all communities have intrinsic value and are inherently asset rich. And it sort of flips the deficit framing on its head in that, yes, we have communities that don't have as much investment, but we really look at it through the lens of human resources as being foundational. And it's also grounded in the understanding that it's best practice to work with community-based entities, community-based partners and leaders, people who are already trusted within the community. So segments of the equity and engagement strategy include an overall summary table of strategies that you will find within your packet of information. These strategies were based on our best practices and understanding of the theory that undergirds equity and engagement, as well as past successes we've had on similar projects, and with the excellent input from the Equity and Engagement Working Group. The strategies are centered in equity, putting people first, and ensuring that decision-making and implementation also centers equity. So I'll give you an overall summary of strategies, which are also here on the slide deck. First and foremost, partnering with community-based organizations and community-based partnerships. Again, understanding that trusted leaders are the best entree points within the communities, both in starting conversations, creating dialogue, and building capacity. So we created solicitation through emails and followed on with the creation of a solicitation, an RFP, to both formalize relationships, request formal discussions, and representation on the equity and engagement TAC. This email and the RFP will be released next week. We're also working currently with agencies and CBOs and conducting interviews with agency staff members. So we had a number of people we spoke with thus far, 4 different entities today, including Mutual Housing, the Bike Campaign, Davis United Methodist Church, and we'll be talking to a number of other folks here listed in the coming weeks, and are taking interviews on an ongoing basis. And the interview questions were developed in concert with the Equity and Engagement TAC. We're also developing surveys, and surveys will be conducted throughout the development of the CAP. The initial survey we will be developing will be previewed with the Equity and Engagement TAC and also informed by the interviews that we're having with agencies and CBOs and CBPs. The survey will be at a minimum in English, Spanish, and Russian. We're determining whether or not we need it in other languages such as Punjabi and Mandarin. And it will be available at our tabling events. And moving on to our confirmed tabling events. Tabling events will also occur throughout the community, throughout the CAP process. And thus far, we have a number of tabling events, primarily at Dia de los Niños events throughout April. all of these at library branches. We will be working with you all to volunteer and staff those tables. And materials that we're generating include child-friendly activities in English and Spanish, coloring sheets, infographics. We're developing stickers, and we will have English and Spanish surveys at a very minimum. And the surveys will also be accessible not only in person, but also online. It's obviously best for us to, at these tabling events, create that dialogue with community members. We also have a number of other non-library events that we have coordinated and confirmed throughout April, including the North Valley Indian Health Fair, Yolo County Central Landfill Earth Day celebration, the Woodland Public Library, Dia de los Niños, and the West Sacramento Senior Resource Fair in May. We also have a potential upcoming event in August, and we'll certainly keep you up to date as we organize and confirm further tabling events throughout Yolo County. Additional engagement strategies include partnerships with cities and community events, citizen advisory boards and commissions, other organizations and boards. And we are, as we dialogue with the community-based organizations and the agencies in the interview process, identifying some of those opportunities. We also have scheduled tentatively 4 interactive workshops throughout the development of the CAP, and we will be conducting tabling events in advance of that to draw attention and to also inform leading up to those workshops. We're using traditional outreach and engagement as well, including notices, emails, social media posts, radio, video announcements, flyers, ads in newspapers, really anything and everything depending on the demographic. Certain populations are more comfortable receiving flyers or reading the newspaper. So we want to make sure that we are covering all of our bases. And we'll also be including bilingual and multilingual visual storytelling portals on the website and different tools, both through the workshops and at different opportunities at tabling events. That is a summary of both the CEP and the equity and engagement strategies, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you for your attention.
Jane, thank you for this presentation. Any questions? Commissioner Austin.
Yes, thank you again for that really thorough work of your team, Ms. Gray, you, Ms. Gray, and your team. So everything looks really good. I'm sorry that I haven't been able to coordinate with you as much as my fellow E&E, I guess, working group team members, but I really appreciate the input that they've provided as well. I'm going to send a message to Kristen about some of the ways that some colleagues of mine at UC Davis are doing some outreach and engagement as well. And I'm hoping that we can do coordination because they're working on some energy efficient development, outreach and engagement in Yolo County, as well as active transportation with the Yolo County Transportation District. So as much as we can do this cross-agency coordination, it makes a lot of sense. So you've put together a really strong list. I'm going to encourage them to piggyback on what the efforts that you're looking at, but let's just keep working on that. I'm sure that Kristen's part of other efforts. I'm thinking of these two are very much related to Yolo County partnerships, but let's also continue to think about if we're already going to be going into these communities, let's address the engagement fatigue. So if there are ways when we're going to, the Turner Library in West Sacramento, are there ways to coordinate with some of their outreach and engagement efforts? I don't want to overwhelm and bombard people, but there is a way for us to do some good cross-agency coordination.
I appreciate that comment and very much agree. I'm sorry, Kristen, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I really appreciate that. And one of the other things that we had talked about is having essentially promo packs. Alita and I talked about this last week, where if any of you are planning to go to events, if you've been asked to present or table at an event for any other purpose, we're going to be creating for these outreach events at Dia de los Niños. We'll have flyers, infographics, stickers, coloring sheets, word searches, all in English and Spanish. And so we can create these promo packs to give to folks. I can drop them off at your house. Like, let's get the word out there. And as much as possible, if you're already going to an event and it's appropriate to also bring these resources, please let me know. And I would be happy to provide you one of those outreach packs, which we're still working on, and E&E still needs to go through E&E, but we're close and we're getting there.
I just wanted to mention, one, thank you to the DUDEC team for this very thorough and responsive overview of your strategy. I see lots of the recommendations were really laced in here from the E&E TAC. And so very happy to see the progress, and so it was like a quick turnaround. So thank you. And also I will also follow up with Kristen. There is other agencies and COBs that I'd like to be on the list that I think would be really critical to working with some, or just assessing some of the more sensitive groups in our county, the groups that we're really trying to hear from. And much as Commissioner Austin mentioned, some of these communities are already being assessed. And so the exhaust, and the fatigue is a real thing. And so there's lots of other programs that are also working with communities that are being impacted by these weather events. So I do think that cross-pollinating or whatever, is going to be really important, because some data is already being collected. So we really need to work with some other efforts and really make it easy on these communities to engage in a non-extractive way. So thank you for your work, and we look forward to the outcomes.
I second what Commissioner Serena said. Before I fire my round of questions, do we have any additional feedback or question from my fellow commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Datel.
Yeah, I'm happy to see the list of the preliminary list that you're doing the interviews with. I see housing and food, health, immigration, faith, and transportation represented there. And of course, there are many other agencies that deal with those things as well. But I specifically wanted to point out youth and elderly. I mean, I think those are really, really important groups to get involved early on, and they may have some creative ideas through these initial interviews. That's all.
Thank you. A very important one. Okay, so I have a few questions, and Jane, fear not, because they're very quick. So I was wondering, on one of the first slides, you mentioned that, the communication and engagement plan will have geography, maps, and community descriptions. When it comes to the maps, I was wondering if they will be interactive. Do you know already?
Yes, and I can put the PowerPoint presentation back up if it's helpful for folks, but the communication and engagement plan itself will be an actual document. We are developing an online tool with interactive mapping. So certainly the document itself can link back and forth to that tool, but it's also sort of a standalone document as well.
Thank you. And then when you mention evaluation and assessment, do you have an idea of what some of the metrics will be?
Yes, so we're going to be measuring number of respondents. We're going to be measuring how the folks that we've outreached to have rated us. So in every survey, we're going to be collecting information on accessibility of the questions, ease at which they are understanding the information, gathering suggestions about how best to outreach to them in the future. So those are 3 metrics that we're collecting at every point.
Fantastic, thank you. And so this is a question on slide number 3, equity and engagement strategy.
And let me share
Okay.
again really quickly for everybody.
Thank you. So while you're sharing, this next question is only for public records. So because you mentioned community-based organizations and community-based partners, and I was wondering if you'll give a brief definition. So what's the difference between the two?
Between CBOs and CBPs. So community-based organizations are often incorporated as 501c3s. Community-based partners don't necessarily need to have that tax designation.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure which slide, Chair Mavongo, you were referring to.
It was slide, it says 3 of 46, yeah.
Oh, it's in the packet, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
I just, the slide before, the page before was number 3, equity and engagement strategy. So thank you, Suzanne, for the assist here. Okay, so now I'm looking at, I don't know the number of that page, but the title of the page is Equity and Engagement Strategy, Summary of Strategies.
Is that the correct slide?
Yes, I think. Yes, thank you. So, and I second everything that was said when it comes to the agencies that you'll be reaching out to. This is great. And I was paying attention also to see how spread out they are in terms of, which parts of Yolo County they're most active and that we're also able to reach. And I know, there's going to be more added because we're focusing on the month of April here. But I was wondering if you could give us a glimpse at maybe also some additional CBOs or CBPs that are operating in unincorporated areas. I'm just wondering, I know you have a strategy also for that.
Yes, so if we're referring to the interviews themselves,
Yes.
we had a number of interviews today, and the ones I've listed were those who've responded and we have scheduled for this week. So Kristen was really diligent in sending out emails. I would say 30 or 35 emails went out. And so we'll be following up with, a number of different CBOs, agencies and NGOs. And they span, all the incorporated areas. So again, this is just a really short list of folks that we will be talking with this week.
It's a solid start. Thank you. Yes, Kristen.
And another addition, just asking of other CBOs, CBPs that we're working with in the unincorporated area. I think something to highlight on the Natural and Working Lands TAC, we have a representative from RISE sitting on the TAC. They're a Latino outreach coordinator with a specific focus on engaging with the farm working community. And so we, after the meeting, also are talking about how we can expand these more broadly. I think we've got the solicitation that Jane mentioned. We have the flexibility to not do a formal RFP we can do something that is an informal solicitation that makes it really easy for partners to apply. And so if folks have recommendations of other organizations or individuals to reach out to as part of our interview process or as part of the solicitation for official partnerships, please continue to send resources our way.
Thank you. And as I said, I think that this is a very solid start. I'm very excited. So I'm looking at the next page. And if I have this many questions, just because your presentation was very inspiring. So I was wondering, so I'm looking at the confirmed tabling events. And at some point you mentioned that basically you're seeking volunteers, right, for those events to table. Did I hear you well?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. So I was wondering, so today you're addressing the commission and members of the public. So are you inviting us to volunteer or are you opening that invitation to any community members as well?
Yes, we open a heartfelt invitation. And I know that Kristen did send out, I think it was a Google Doc or a link to a Google Doc related to the tabling opportunities. And certainly community members that are interested can also sign up. We would like language proficiency, obviously, English and Spanish, as our materials will be English and Spanish. And, there's a wide variety of opportunities to staff a table.
Fantastic, thank you. And then next is a remark, not a question. So I know that, and I'm looking at the next tabling page of tabling events page. So I know we focused for this meeting on the month of April only. So I want it for the month of May because I'm guessing that the equity and engagement strategy is not just gonna start and stop in April, right? Okay.
That's correct. So yes, we're continuing to schedule events out. We have right now one event in May and one event in August. And we're also going to be weaving in not only tabling events, but the workshops. And we did not preview those workshops today in this slide deck, but we will be discussing those workshop opportunities.
Thank you, perfect. So I just wanted to flag also the Whole Earth Festival, which you probably already thought about, but I think it has 1,000 of people in attendance, and they many come from throughout Yolo County. So just
Yeah, Julia is looking into the application process. We unfortunately, the deadline to apply as a table was very early. We missed that, so we're working on it. If any of you know also of any other booths that might be interested to have a enthusiastic group of CAP outreach folks join their table, please let us know. We're trying to explore any effort to get involved.
to speak with the organizers directly. Yeah, okay. I will try to, I will ask one of your, your team members to just send me a reminder email because I'll try to reach out also. Back in a few years ago, I used to know some of the students organizing it. So. Okay, thank you. And then next, and this is, the end of my questions, feedback on that. Again, I really am excited about your presentation, excited about the engagement strategy and, thinking of presenting at local community events, citizen advisory committee meetings, the interactive workshops. I can't wait. I already know, I'm sure that the workshops will also have language accessibility. So I thank you in advance for that. And then also you mentioned the video announcements. And I know that you make a point of all the materials that you share with the community for them to be at least bilingual. So also for the videos, I already know that you're going to cover that. And then my last question, when it comes to all of those events and possibly the workshops, I was thinking of ways to improve community input and participations. And I was wondering if maybe you thought of things like, raffles or just offering like, entering people in a raffle, offering a prize. And it's not something that has to happen in person, but assuming that input is received also electronically. So maybe people can know that they entered in a raffle. Is that a possibility?
That's a great idea, and we can certainly incorporate that. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So that's all I had to share. You've all been very patient. Commissioner White.
Jane, thanks so much for all your hard work on that. And it looks wonderful. And I can't believe you can do all of those events. And I have two comments. The first is Duck Days at the Yolo Basin Foundation is on at the end of the month, April 29th. Like 1,000 people will come with their kids. And actually, I have three comments. Because it also occurs to me that places like the Yolo SPCA and the Yolo Basin Foundation have hundreds of volunteers who are great people to answer these surveys as well. And they represent, same thing with the Yolo Food Bank, thousands of volunteers. So those are great places to reach. But my big comment is, I saw lots of things about people and residents. I didn't see things about engaging the business community. And does that come later?
So we will make a concerted effort to reach out to industries and businesses. And that generally will come through the surveys themselves and the outreach that we do through the workshops. But we can do sort of a micro push on businesses. Right now, we're sort of really front loading the more vulnerable communities, understanding that that might take a little longer, but we understand your point and certainly can introduce that earlier on as well.
Yeah, so as a champion of industry and a board member of 2 business organizations, I would say sooner rather than later, because if you don't have business on board, this is something that's done to them instead of with them, and they are not going to be champions. And so our 3 chambers all have great meetings to meet. The Yolo County Workforce Investment Board is very huge and really active. So I think you need to talk to them sooner rather than later.
Thank you for that point. We'll reach out to them and the chambers. And so any sort of insight you have on best times, we would be happy to make a presentation and sit down with the board members at the community chambers.
Thank you, Commissioner White. And I want to add to that, that as the weather is going to be warmer and sunnier, many chambers of commerce will start hosting events as well. And as it was mentioned, they, because they will already be tabling and all of that, they might be open also to helping spread the word without, imposing on us further than that. Yes, Commissioner Serena.
I just wanted to put on your radar, the Honey Festival is coming up and it's also very well attended. People from all over the county show up and it's, I would recommend if you can't get a table there, the city of Woodland we could potentially share a table, but I think, yeah, now is a good time to reach out to try to secure a table for that.
Thank you for that point. Appreciate that.
Commissioner Austin, did I see your hand move at some point? Oh, okay. Any other enthusiastic reactions to the presentation? Yes, Commissioner Dattel.
The Whole Earth Festival was mentioned. What about Picnic Day? We have a connection with Camille Kirk. We could have a float. We could throw the surveys with the candy or something. I mean, that's a huge event. Lots of people come to campus.
Would you humor me for a few seconds? Blame that on us meeting in person and me not being my usual self, as proven earlier already. When you mentioned Picnic Day, I pictured, because we have what is it called? When everyone is like on the parade, right? So picture a parade, a climate action parade. And on the vehicle, whatever that is, of course, it's not going to be fuel operated. There is a huge QR code to a survey. Jane, like I said, I'm not unhinged, but I'm not my usual self right now. So
these are all great ideas. We're developing a QR code, and that QR code will have the multilingual survey. And so to the extent that, we put it on a float or distribute it, I think that's really helpful. It'll link back to the page. And we want to distribute that QR code widely. So I appreciate all these suggestions.
You're most welcome. I was joking, but I'm pretty sure we had like members of the Tree Davis group, and if they are going to join the parade, maybe we could ask one of, if we're aware of some of the CBOs that will be there, maybe they will be willing to help with that. I'm just going to shut up here before I share crazier ideas. Yes, Kristen?
Oh, I was just going to add that Camille Kirk added in the chat that she was just about to suggest Picnic Day might be a good event to do some outreach at. So we are in agreement there.
Thank you all. I want to, without putting you on the spot, I don't know, Pelayo or Micah, if you wanted to add anything.
I guess I was just wondering if there was any possibility for tabling at some places like Walmart, where we know that there are thousands of people that go probably every weekend. So I just wondered if that had been considered.
Yeah, we have thought about tabling at community supermarkets, places where folks are already going to be gathered again, and have a table out to invigilate the survey, gather some information, and really, in a sort of a non-threatening routine manner. So yes, we have thought about that and can certainly work that into the strategy as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So before, returning to, yes,
No, I was just emailed Kristen about picnic day was already mentioned and Dog Days was mentioned, but I was thinking about the Yolo County Fair. And then as far as organizations, the Yolo Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
And Camille Kirk added in the chat, the Davis Farmers Market.
fantastic. You're speaking faster than I can take notes, but great. So before asking again commissioners for further comments, I want to ask if online we have any public comments.
We have one public comment from Christine Shoemaker.
Christine, you have the floor. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And thank you for that, Jane. A lot of work. So in addition to the Davis Farmers Market, I'm going to throw in the Woodland Farmers Market, which is smaller, but it has a different demographic. So it's a good one to consider. And so my other question is, are there any ways to have virtual tabling events or virtual workshops? So I'm just thinking of the subset who, for whatever reason, when it's 110 in August, aren't out, or we want to reach them, or they're 105 and it's not good for them. They're 105 years old and it's not good for them to be out, but we want to engage them. So I'm just thinking we have all of these tabling and workshop events. Maybe consider as well, how do we do a small amount of that virtually for folks who that would work easier for? Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Great idea. Kristen or Jane, do you want to react?
Thank you. Yes, I think that's it's important. And I see, well, before I prattle on, did we have a question from the commission?
Well, Jane, I was going to prattle on.
No,
we're working on a project in rural San Benito County right now. And one of our consultants that we're working with did something I'd never heard of before. And he had an online survey party. So for 4 hours, he was on Zoom. He played music, he danced, he sang, he encouraged people to bring their drinks and to come on and do the survey together and talk to him and ask him questions. And it was so ridiculously successful. You know, he had like 5 surveys before he had the online party, and he had like 75 people show up to his online survey party. Who knew? So I just thrown that out there. I'd never heard of it before.
Thank you. That's a great idea. We'll certainly think about operationalizing that. And sort of back to the virtual portion of it. Yes, we want to have hybrid meetings such as this. We want to make sure that we're engaging all demographics. We also want to be mindful that there might be communities that don't have access to ready available Wi-Fi too. So I think we're going to be really mindful about how we tailor the approach, but certainly want to have workshops be hybrid opportunities. And as it relates to some of the younger folks and seniors, want to work through senior centers and Meals on Wheels and folks that are already, in person with some of those communities.
Can I add, Jane, too? I think even if we could consider, I've seen sometimes hybrid workshops can be a little clunky because of roundtable formats. I've also seen some things where everything is in hybrid, but then there's one all online option so that you can have that really dedicated online environment. And so even if that's something we can consider for one of the 4 workshops to have it be online only, I think that would be an interesting thing to consider.
Absolutely.
I just want to say that I'm in awe of the amount of ideas that was generated in this conversation. So thank you all for being so lively and creative. And Chris, I really want to know, when is the party and when do we show up? That was a great idea. So it's interesting because the Human Relations Commission in Davis was discussing something similar, in terms of outreach and all of that. And one of the ideas that was suggested was a picnic, kind of like a party, so to speak, in a park, where people are able to invite their neighbors. Let's, meet in a park, have picnic and drinks, and fill out surveys or, nomination applications. So, but all great ideas. Yes, Kristen.
We do have one more public comment from the
Okay.
online.
And then also I want to let you know that we're actually ahead of schedule. So we're doing great. Thank you. Thank you all. And we are ready for the next public comment.
The next public comment comes from Scott Stewart.
Scott, thank you for joining us tonight virtually. You're invited if you like to share any affiliations you'd like us to be aware of, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, NJ, and thank you to the commission and to our consultant from DUDEC as well. Thank you, Jane. I'm Scott Stewart. I'm a resident of Davis, California, and I am an ally of a couple of organizations that I think would be helpful to determine if they can be helpful as well. Climate Reality Project on the campus of Davis, UC Davis, Sunrise Movement, which is regional both in Sacramento and Yolo, and also Fridays for Future. These groups tend to be at different age groups. Tends to be that Fridays for the Future is high school aged. Sunrise tends to be college. Climate Reality Project tends to be graduate students. So you might find some energy as well. I wanted to make the point also that it is daunting to hear the number and levels of communication that need to occur. And as the organization of those choices is made, perhaps a priority or some kind of priority could be placed on where the biggest greenhouse gas changes need to be made, and where are those folks going to be showing up. And then the other is just that it's enormously important for Yolo County, I think, to understand how transcendent this opportunity is in terms of the wellness of our community in being able to communicate effectively around climate action. And so I encourage a thoughtful process within the county, not just within this commission, to make this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We took note of your comment and suggestion. Kristen, do we have any additional public comment online?
No additional public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. So any closing remarks from fellow commissioners or maybe from Supervisor Provenza?
I believe Provenza exited the meeting.
Okay, I can see because I don't have my glasses, so let me correct that. Thank you, Adelita, for letting me know. Yes, Pelayo.
One thing that comes to mind is climate change still remains a potentially controversial topic for a lot of people. And I was wondering if we're going to start doing outreach, if there are any strategies to try to scale down a potentially controversial argument with a resident or someone who might be, I don't want to say offended, but bothered by the presence of people talking about climate change at an event. I just want to be mindful that that could come up. And I'd like to be prepared.
Could I respond to that?
Yes, Mr. Omar.
I think that the Caribbean Shorters Protocol that's mentioned in the slideshow here, the slide deck, it would be good to review that. Asset framing, I think, is a wonderful tactic to use here by focusing on people's aspirations. I think that brings people together, different groups together, and I think that would be very useful in this discussion. Obviously, the awareness level of climate change is rising all the time, but with different public segments, they have different focal points on it. But I think there are common aspirations about protecting the planet for our children and their children ongoing, as well as the immediate benefits that could be realized. So I think that's the way to look at it. Look at the aspirations. I think the Caribbean Shorters and the Be Me organization that he founded, there are discussions on the online websites, as well as some very short videos where he walks through the logic of taking this approach to try to overcome what would be otherwise divisive elements who would be focusing on challenges and roadblocks rather than common goals and aspirations. So anyway, take a look. I think that's very important.
Thank you both for your remarks. Bernadette?
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing up that particular issue and the response that you provided as well. Related to that, I know it's already been said, but I really want to underscore the outreach to our rural communities and to industry. That's really, really important. And I'll tell you, this is anecdotal, but it's based on a lot of personal evidence. In Yolo County, I don't see a lot of what I would consider climate change deniers. I do know folks who are really seeking a pragmatic approach.
Yeah.
And so listen, we have a huge number, I'd probably say more than most agricultural counties, of organic farms, family-run farms, farms that are doing really cutting-edge work on sustainability and equity. And so how can we engage growers, farmers, et cetera? We also have people working on pretty much the cutting edge of clean energy and really innovative transportation. So while we are a transportation and agriculturally focused community, if we're engaging with industry partners, we're going to get huge bang for our buck. So listen, I love picnic day as much as the next person. We are probably going to be preaching to the choir, and what we could talk about is behavioral change. We need to look at really deep changes. It is not an accident that one of the things that we've looked at as far as an early action project targets agriculture. So I think it's already working with that quote unquote biggest bang for our buck, which we know is industry, transportation, et cetera, is going to be really important. So in addition to, of course, wearing my equity engagement hat, I want to make sure that people who are most affected, who are affected first and worst, are being able to weigh in. But I think it's also really important that we take a very pragmatic approach, because being able to be pragmatic and not just talk about sort of theoretical or aspirational, but what would actually work in my industry and field is really going to move the needle here.
Thank you. And those are all very important points. So I think it's also a good time to remind us that what we're also discussing here are surveys, meaning that the first steps that are taken is asking people where they're at, what their concerns are. So we're centering our community's needs first before coming in with arguments and all. So I also think, Pelayo, possibly that also what you were referring to is especially going to be needed when the workshops are happening, because workshops are also when we start the education process and a conversation, and so on. So it seems to me that the surveys are almost akin, I guess, to listening sessions on different formats. But thank you for raising those very important points. Kristen.
I was just going to share, there were a few comments in the chat. So stating those for public record. Camille says, cute and clever stickers as giveaways work well. So I'm happy to hear that's part of the plan. Could we give out a sticker or postcard with all Meals on Wheels delivered, or with bags given out at Yolo Food Bank, et cetera? So thinking about, again, those opportunities to share double up. And then Supervisor Provenza said, I have to leave for another meeting. Thanks to all commissioners and staff for doing such an excellent job.
Thank you. And then my closing remarks when it comes also to the stickers is that that's another activity where the business owners might be actually happy to help with as well. Yes, Commissioner Bennett.
I think for your comment about reaching rural people made me realize that we have in KP Valley, we have an email list that goes to, it's just 170 people, but if you send it out, I mean, it's easy to send out. And then I also thought, well, what about next door? And if there are other online groups like that.
Thank you. And then also in regard to concerns about access to technical devices, right? And with our farmers, we know that they are so incredibly busy and they will be even busier. So it's hard for them to add to their schedule, but they do have in-person events. So if we, aware of when they're going to gather, it's a very welcoming community from my experience. So just throwing it out there. Okay, so I think that this closes our time on this agenda item. Yes? Okay. So I thank you all. I think that was a pretty lively discussion. So I just want to be sure, do we have to vote on anything? Okay, I was asking just for show. So this concludes our time on agenda item number 8. We're now going to listen to our ad hoc working group last updates ever. We're starting with the equity and engagement group.
Right. Thank you, Chairman Mando. Yeah, so what we basically worked on the last month was language that went out to the community-based organizations, as well as some of the language that will be in the assessments. And so we finalized that as, a working group along with DUDEC, and, finalize, nothing's final. It's all a work in progress. So I do feel like it's like the list of CBOs will continue to be added to, but, we're looking at all of that. What I'm happy to say is that we did offer invitations to individuals that did interview to be a part of our TAC. And we're really happy with the few that have gone out. We did focus on interviewing young people, youth. And so I'll just say, there was a lot of youth that are interested. We're really focusing on the unincorporated areas. And I feel like we got a lot of youth from, Davis, not surprised, but we did, offer invitations to a few, very bright young people that, have helped with some of the efforts in Oakland, their Oakland CAP process. And so we're excited about their input. And this will be ongoing as well, because again, we were not, as satisfied with, kind of the final picks, because we did feel limited with those that interviewed. We really want to be inclusive and continue to keep our eyes out for young people that might find interest later on if they find out about us. We'll continue to be putting the word out to groups of young people, or even individuals that we think are interested in working with our TAC. So I just want to say that again is not a closed door yet. So that's something I'm also happy to say, we're like, this doesn't feel like we want it to end. We want to keep that door open for that young voice. So in that said, one of the young persons that we interviewed does come from the Yolo County Youth Commission. So that commission actually is made up of young people throughout the county. And so of course they're on this commission, so they're busy. And some of them showed interest, but at the end we're not fully able to commit. But one individual did say that they could. And so we're gonna work with that young person and hopefully get even some of our our assessments on their agenda. I was like, can you put something on your agenda? So we're hoping to, again, continue to keep our eyes peeled for young people that could represent other areas that are currently not working with us. If I forgot anything, my working group members, please chime in if I've missed anything.
Thank you. I think you've got it pretty well covered. One of the things that I think is important is a part of the process that we're evolving a process of equity and engagement, because there is no set way to do this. And so our efforts have been part of what generated the desire to switch our organization from a working group to an advisory group, and in that way facilitate more inclusion that may increase as we get out in the communities and meet people. But from the perspective of the various populations that need to be represented, we also had a concern for cross-agency coordination within the county itself, so that these commissions like the Youth Commission and like the Adult and Aging Services Commission are being invited to assign a liaison with this, so that the policies that we come up can be cross-communicated, and hopefully as the CAP is developed, the policies, the principles, and the programs would be incorporated in their policies and programs, much like Health for All is incorporated across policies in the agency. So that's the only thing I would add. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, okay, so I just thank you for this update. Very encouraging. I was wondering, so I think it was Chris earlier, just again asked that we make sure that there is a senior representation and voices. So do you have that right now in the technical advisory group?
Suzanne, I think you were saying you were going to look into someone to represent.
I think we have someone.
We're working to identify a representative from the Commission on Aging and Adult Services to sit and serve in that liaison role. So we don't have somebody yet, but I think for this working group and for our Natural and Working Lands working group, we're hoping to get to a point next month where we can officially introduce the full, both tax to this commission, so that you can understand who's going to be sitting on those as we finalize that leadership. But
Thank you. And I just wanted that on record. I kind of like had the information already. I was wondering, when it comes to the Youth Commission member who, for whom the time commitment could be an issue, is there a possibility that maybe they have a rotation? Do you think that they could, you know, maybe have a couple of representatives and they just take turn attending the working group meetings?
I think we did explore that option. Our main concern was having a consistent input from, if it's a representative, maybe it does rotate out, but that, you know, they can be consistent throughout the year and even during, you know, maybe a school break time or, so we have asked about flexibility and being able to, work with us virtually, of course. That's, you know, why we really advocated for, you know, hybrid, is to make this really accessible. So, and inclusive, you know, for everyone who even has any other health issues. So we want to make sure that everyone who wants to participate can. So it could be an option that over at 6. I thought it was over
Our
at
Zoom
6:30.
thing timed out too.
I think we're over at 6:30.
Oh, there we are. Oh, the computer fell asleep. All the mics fell asleep because the computer fell asleep.
I know, not at all.
hold on one second.
All right, so
Okay, we've got,
We were able to see a message from.
okay, Kate, you can see us. Hear us? We can't.
What I would just say is that,
Kristen, look at the screen.
yeah,
You want to
she
turn
can
that
hear
off?
us. It says
But
yes.
is that a personal message? You want us to be able to read your personal text messages?
It's no, that's a Zoom message. to
Oh,
everybody.
okay. Just making sure.
Yeah, I think what I want to just say is that, yes, we want to work with the availability of, you know, our young or anybody who wants to participate. We want to make it, a process that they can access. So, we're exploring all of that right now. So, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate the update. Any additional reactions on what we heard? So to the members of the public, I'll ask you to hold your questions for the end of all of the updates. So I think at this time you're ready to hear from the natural and working lands. And Kate, thank you for joining us. And I believe that Kristen will also have something to share on this topic. We're listening.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you. I'm Kate Reza, and I'm a program manager with the Yolo County Resource Conservation District. Last Thursday, the Ag and Natural Lands Working Group held its final and first in-person meeting at the Yolo Land and Cattle Company with new membership. All three of the agricultural enterprise seats were filled. Scott Stone, Eric Wilson, and Neil Muller. And also representing the ag community was Umberto Izquierdo, the agricultural commissioner. And representing farm workers was Adrienne Solis with RISE. And after introductions and a brief orientation for new members, the group reviewed the initial set of sequestration practices, and numerous changes were suggested for incorporation by the DUDEC team. And the group also reviewed the survey questions and also provided changes for the DUDEC team to incorporate into those. And several programmatic suggestions were made around assisting farmers with locating and applying for funding opportunities. And then toward the end of the meeting, the group spent a bit of time talking about different farmers' perspectives on carbon farming, climate change, incentivizing beneficial practices, and potential outreach strategies. And next steps are to delve more into the outreach efforts, determining the appropriate targeting of groups, reviewing the outreach materials, and discussing outreach opportunities. And that's what I've got pretty much. So if any of the commissioners or Kristen, you'd like to add.
I think the only thing that I'll add right now, Kate covered that there are a lot of updates to the survey and sequestration strategies. So for Jane and I think Mike and Sarah from DUDEC were on the phone as well. We have Gretchen took very detailed notes on the updates to the sequestration strategies that were requested by the working group. So we'll be sending those your way, and then we'll plan to share a final updated version with the commission once that's been completed.
Okay, thank you. So fellow commissioners, any questions?
And quickly,
yes,
bidding farewell to Camille Kirk, who had to leave early. So thanks so much for joining us, Camille.
Well, I guess I do have a
Yes.
question.
That's Commissioner Dattel.
Could we hear a little bit more about what the farmers in the group thought needed to be changed from what DUDEC had presented? What kinds of concerns were newly surfaced or articulated by them?
Well, I don't think there were a lot of new concerns articulated, but concerns that had been brought up before were readdressed. And for example, there were concerns around the length of the survey, making sure it didn't take up too much time. There was one practice that has to do with dairy farming that really isn't relevant in Yolo County. Let's see, Kristen, does anything come to mind for you that the farmers brought up specifically?
Yeah, there were some questions around confidentiality of information. And so some of the questions that we had been asking I think that removing names from surveys was one really simple request so that folks didn't feel like oftentimes when farmers get surveys, there is some level of compliance or enforcement involved with the information that they're providing. So trying to divorce that from what we are trying to do felt really important. And some of the questions that got at that were the type of farm equipment that you have. And so the question was coming from a place of one, trying to understand what was out there and trying to be able to connect to incentives and other programs that exist. There was a pretty strong ask to remove that because like, gosh, if I am running a bunch of old tractors, are you going to come out here and tell me that I can't continue operating as I have been? And so there were some recommendations that there are, we could work with the working group to identify what types of, so rather than looking at size, think about the type of operation and the type of the number of acres. And there's a lot you can extrapolate from that based on what we know about growing operations in Yolo County. So I think that was all really helpful. I think that the language and the way that we had worded the survey and in response to climate change and the focus around that, generally the feeling was pretty positive that we had really taken out a lot of the climate specific language and things were in a way that was digestible. And then also this is something that we're definitely planning to do, but an emphasis on providing more context at the beginning of the survey about why we are engaging with ag and really elevating the benefit of the ag community in terms of the sequestration benefit and making that the central focus of this and having a short disclaimer that like this survey will take no more than 5 minutes. This is why we want to know this information. And it's really to highlight the great work that's being done.
I have a question about this now for both you and Kate. The survey, from what you've described, I heard two purposes. The first purpose was to collect information and able to do a greenhouse gas inventory. And the second was to ask them what are their challenges, barriers, hopes, concerns, worries. Is that correct?
And I also, Mike, I don't know if Mike Howard from DUDAC is here and if there's anything that you want to, this is really in your space, Mike. And so I want to give you the opportunity first if you want to respond to Chris's question about the main purpose and the hopes for the information that we're gathering out of this survey.
Well, what I'd add to that is also for the evaluation. So for the, we want to gather as much information about practices they're currently employing, equipment they're using, water they're using, that sort of thing for the natural and working lands evaluation we're going to be doing. And then that also informs then what practices can we assume going forward with some of the natural and working land grants strategies. So once we know kind of baseline what's out there now, can you use that for the evaluation and then to extrapolate to the strategies that could be employed?
Okay, thank you. So you're not asking about hopes, dreams, concerns, fears. You're just asking for an inventory.
There were some questions about the hopes, dreams, well, the fears around climate change. And that was actually one of the sections that we had a lot of discussion around whether or not there was value in that. And if that's something that we should cut out and really just focus on narrowing in on those strategies.
So, I don't work much with farms. I have a new farm client, but I do work a lot with fleets. And we have found that when we say, we want you to complete this inventory, they are much more likely to do it. When I was asking them about behaviors and policies and contracts that end, they were much less likely to do it. We actually had to do those in two separate pieces. So I would maybe encourage you to think of calling this first one just an inventory and asking them to give you an inventory, and then separately talking to them about practices and what things would change and what they're worried about. I think you're going to get better information. I think when you confuse the two, people get embarrassed and they start to lie about their inventory. But maybe that's not a good word, is to like go, oh, that looks really bad, or I think it's about this. But when we started asking just for inventory data, it sounds very, very factual.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Chris?
Commissioner Reed, I'm confused about the conversation now that's focusing on the word inventory, because we're not doing a greenhouse gas emissions inventory by asking either number of pieces of equipment or the estimated emissions or the operations. Is that correct? I mean, is my understanding correct that it's not a technical inventory? You're nodding your head. So we
Yeah, I'm nodding. Yeah, Mike, is there anything you want to add there?
Yeah, it's not for the carbon sequestration component. It's not an inventory, but we would like to know in terms of elements that they have on their farm and how they currently use their land. That informs how best we can apply strategies going forward. So, if we had a farm that had all the UTVs that are already electric, then there's less room to improve going forward. But if they're all older gas-powered UTVs, then there's room to improve there. So that's kind of gets at it.
Yeah, I guess to be more clear, to Suzanne's point, is that we have been more successful when we ask people facts in one thing and attitudes and opinions in another thing. And when we have mixed facts and attitudes, it has resulted in people altering one or the other, just because everybody's a human being.
Overthinking the answers. Thank you, Chris, for that feedback. So in being as precise as possible with the questions. Kristen?
And I just want to, Heather Nichols from OCD is raising her hand to add a comment. So I want to give her a chance to respond as well. Heather, you have the floor.
Hello, it's Heather Nichols with the Yolo County RCD. I just was, one of the things that came up during that meeting was around how a lot of that information can be pretty easily extrapolated based on the farm crop type, the kind of crops that are being grown in certain areas, the kinds of practices and the acreages. So that was one of the pieces of input we got from farmers themselves to say that information is pretty standard and we can work with you to get that generally speaking. But asking farmers individually, even if we were working with them, I understand what Commissioner is saying about separating sort of like the attitude versus the inventory. But still, farmers get a lot of that to begin with in terms of surveying and asking for information. And it seems like we could get really close to that kind of information that we need without asking for inventory. And then, we're really just taking a transect of ultimately maybe 10% of the farming community is where we'll be able to reach. And we really want to get some of the information around what we think folks are interested in and wanting to do. So that's, I think, what could be the most valuable information we can get. So we want to keep that door open. That's just sort of my 2 cents.
Please keep going. Sorry.
That's it. I was just going to say that's what we heard. That's what we heard from the farmers that were there.
I want to thank you for providing additional context to how the meeting went. And also, just so it'd be clear, so one of the things that I heard you say was that basically the farmers who were present provided feedback also on the questions and suggestions on how to best formulate those questions. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Reed?
I just wanted to follow up on what Heather said about the focus of the interest of the survey being what the farmers are interested in. And I've commented before, but I want to reiterate, I think it's really, really important. We talk about incentives and what incentives would work, and we have a a potpourri of incentives that are thrown out there to encourage behavior, but I would really emphasize the need to ask them about the barriers to doing more than they're already doing, or to do something different, so that we have a firm understanding of if there are possibilities of things that are in place that could be easily removed, that would facilitate any transitions or changes that they are interested in and we are interested in having them do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. And about what we just heard, just want to mention that it's also a question that you can ask directly to organizations like the Farm Bureau and the Coalition for the Community Alliance for Family Farms, because it's a question that they more or less regularly ask the farmers that they work with at the events that they're hosting. So I'm saying that the answers also might already be available, and I'm saying that in the spirit of what Commissioner Serena shared about, of course, being mindful of how much we're asking or not repeating something that's been done. On that note, I would like to ask if there is any public comments on those updates.
I don't see any public comment.
Okay. So I think we're ready to close our time on this item. Yes? Okay, I thank you all for the updates that were provided. Thanking my fellow commissioners for your input and feedback. Thank you very much, Kate and Heather and Mike, as well for your contribution to this conversation. So this concludes our time on agenda item number 9, which was the ad hoc working group updates. Before moving on to number 10, I would like to thank again the DUDEC team and Jane, especially for the excellent presentation you gave earlier. I forgot to tell you how, I don't know if enamored is the right word, but how excited I am about the new logo. I think it's very fantastic. But again, thank you for the work you've done so far. Very exciting. So agenda item number 10, fellow commissioners, is there any comments, announcement you'd like to share with us, any reports, any future agenda items you'd like absolutely to see next month? I know it's been over 2 hours straight of sitting and talking. Okay, I don't see any need to discuss this further. Usually we don't take public comments on this, right? Or do we?
I think we usually open up the floor for public comment.
Okay, I will do it. So members of the public, is there anything you would like to share with the commission on this item, which is commission reports, comments, and future agenda items? So maybe you have, no public
comment.
No public comments. Before I announce agenda item 11, I would like to please invite us all to take one deep breath, maybe stretch a little bit. We're almost there. It's almost over. I think we've been doing great so far, except for my lapses in okay. So I thank you all again. So we're now looking at agenda item 11. Please refer to attachment I, which is our long range calendar. And Kristen, anything you want to share on this?
No.
Yes, Commissioner Austin.
Just a reminder that we're going to change the retrofit to replacement for May.
Yes.
And as we did last time, it's really helpful, Kristen, to let us know when it's anything from our commission is being agendized, because I think it's really helpful. So I'll tell my commissioners, one of the things that our former working group talked about is it's helpful if you're so inclined to reach out ahead of time to maybe perhaps a supervisor from your district to share your perspectives. And then if you can attend and are so motivated to provide public comment, I think it always really helps to reinforce what staff is presenting and be available for any questions.
So I just want to clarify, you said it's helpful to let us know what will be discussed at the Board of Supervisors meeting that relates to this commission. Thank you. Excellent suggestion. Okay, on that note, also just a quick announcement on my end. I'm sorry because I could have said that on agenda item 10. So the newsletters, the past editions of the newsletter are also now available online. They're very easy to access, just so you know, making any prior and current information very easy to share. Okay, so I think this concludes our time on agenda item number 11. Could we please have a round of applause to ourselves for making it to our first in-person meeting? We did it. Yes, and we are going to have a group picture. Are we doing this after I adjourn the meeting? Okay, so I thank you all for attending the meeting in person. I thank you for our consultants and members of the public and staff who attended remotely. I would like to give a special thanks to the staff normally attending to the Board of Supervisors and this chamber for helping us with the logistic. So again, have a fantastic end of month of March and month of April, and we'll see you next month. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned at 6:22. Yes. Except for forgetting my name.